The rain was falling hard on the streets of downtown Chicago that November evening. I pulled my thin coat tighter as I walked toward the Fletcher family mansion in Lincoln Park. My name is Sarah Martinez, and I was about to have dinner with my fiancé, Michael's family. Michael Fletcher came from one of the wealthiest families in Illinois, while I grew up in a small apartment in Pilsen with my single mother who cleaned offices for a living. I had been dating Michael for 2 years, and we got engaged 3 months ago. His mother, Victoria Fletcher, never missed a chance to remind me that I wasn't good enough for her son. She would make comments about my clothes, my accent, and especially about my background. But Michael's father, Robert Fletcher, was different. He was quiet, always watching, but he treated me with respect. As I walked down Michigan Avenue, I saw him again, the homeless man who usually sat near the coffee shop on the corner. He was maybe 50 years old, with long gray hair and a beard that looked like it hadn't been trimmed in years. His clothes were dirty and torn, and he was shivering in the cold rain. Something about him always caught my attention. His eyes were different from other homeless people I had seen. They were sad, but there was intelligence there, like he had once lived a different life. I stopped and bought him a hot coffee and a sandwich from the nearby deli. He looked up at me with grateful eyes and said, "Thank you, miss. God bless you." His voice was educated, refined even. It made me wonder what his story was. I was already late for dinner, so I hurried to the Fletcher mansion. The house was enormous, with tall windows and a perfectly manicured lawn. Inside, everything was expensive and cold. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, and oil paintings in gold frames lined the walls. Victoria Fletcher greeted me at the door, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than my mother made in 6 months. "Sarah, you're late," she said, looking at her diamond watch. "And you're wet. Didn't you take a taxi?" "I walked, Mrs. Fletcher." "I like the fresh air," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked at me like I was crazy. "Walking in this weather? How rustic of you." Michael appeared and kissed my cheek. "Hi, beautiful. Don't mind my mother. She's just worried about the dinner." He helped me out of my wet coat. Robert Fletcher was sitting in his study, reading a newspaper when we walked in. He was a tall man in his 60s, with gray hair and kind eyes. He had built Fletcher Industries from nothing, and was now worth over $2 billion. Despite his wealth, he was always humble and soft-spoken. "Hello, Sarah," he said, standing up to shake my hand. "How are you tonight?" "I'm well, thank you, Mr. Fletcher." "How was your day?" "Good, good. Just reading about the city council meeting. They're discussing funding for homeless shelters again." Victoria rolled her eyes. "Robert, must we talk about such depressing things before dinner?" "Sarah, come, let me show you the new artwork I bought last week." Dinner was served in the formal dining room, at a table that could seat 12 people. The silverware was real silver, and the plates were fine china with the Fletcher family crest. Victoria had invited her sister Margaret and her husband Charles, both equally snobbish and judgmental. As we ate the first course, a fancy soup I couldn't pronounce, Victoria started her usual interrogation. "So, Sarah, how is your mother's cleaning business?" "She doesn't own a business, Mrs. Fletcher. She works for a cleaning company." "Oh, I see. And your father?" I had answered this question many times before. "I don't have a father, Mrs. Fletcher. My mother raised me alone." Margaret gasped dramatically. "Oh my, how difficult that must have been. Single mothers, you know. They often struggle to teach their children proper value." I felt my face getting hot, but Michael squeezed my hand under the table. Robert Fletcher said nothing, but I noticed he was watching the conversation carefully. Victoria continued, "Well, at least you have a job now. Michael told me you work at that little nonprofit organization. What do you do there exactly?" "I coordinate food distribution programs for families in need," I said proudly. It was important work, even if it didn't pay much. "How charitable of you," Victoria said with a fake smile. "Though I suppose it's easy to give away other people's money." "Actually, Mrs. Fletcher, we rely mostly on donations and volunteers. I often use my own money to buy extra food when we're short." Charles laughed. "Your own money? How much could that possibly be?" I felt tears starting to form in my eyes, but I wouldn't let them see me cry. Michael looked angry and was about to say something when his father spoke up. "Sarah's work is important, Charles. Helping people who are struggling is one of the most valuable things anyone can do." Victoria shot her husband a look that could kill. Robert, please, let's not turn dinner into a charity fundraiser. The main course arrived, and the conversation shifted to business and social events. I knew nothing about. I tried to eat, but my stomach was in knots. I kept thinking about the homeless man outside in the rain. After dinner, Victoria suggested we move to the living room for coffee and dessert. As we walked through the hallway, I looked out the window and saw something that broke my heart. The homeless man from earlier was sitting across the street from the Fletcher mansion, still in the rain, hugging his coffee cup for warmth. I couldn't take it anymore. "Excuse me," I said. "I'll be right back." I went to the kitchen and found Maria, the housekeeper, who was cleaning up. "Maria, do you have a container I could use? And maybe some of that leftover roast beef?" Maria looked confused but helped me pack a generous portion of food in a to-go container. I also grabbed a bottle of water and some bread roll. I slipped out the back door and walked around to the front of the house. The rain had gotten heavier, and I was soaked within seconds. The homeless man was still there, looking miserable. "Sir," I called out, "I brought you some dinner." He looked up, surprised. "Miss, you shouldn't be out in this rain. You'll catch pneumonia." "I'm fine. Here, this is still warm." I handed him the container and the water. "There's roast beef, potatoes, and vegetables. It's really good." He opened the container and his eyes filled with tears. This is a feast. Thank you so much. You have such a kind heart. What's your name?" I asked, sitting down on the bench next to him, despite the rain. He hesitated for a moment. "Just call me Thomas." "What's yours?" Sarah Martinez." "Sarah," he repeated. "That's a beautiful name. You know, you remind me of someone I used to know. Someone who cared about people the way you do." We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes while he ate. I noticed he had good table manners, and again I wondered about his past. "I should get back inside," I finally said. "But Thomas, there's a shelter about 6 blocks from here on State Street. It's warm and dry." He smiled sadly. "I know about the shelter, Sarah, but sometimes a man needs to be alone with his thoughts, even if it means being cold and wet." I was about to ask him what he meant when I heard Victoria's voice behind me. "Sarah, what on earth are you doing?" I turned around to see Victoria, Michael, and the rest of the dinner party standing on the front porch, staring at me in horror. I was completely soaked, sitting on a bench with a homeless man. "Mrs. Fletcher, you were just what? Embarrassing our family? Do you have any idea how this looks?" Victoria was practically screaming. "We have neighbors, Sarah. Important people live on this street. What will they think when they see a Fletcher family member sitting in the gutter with what? Mother?" Michael stepped forward, anger clear in his voice. "With homeless people, Michael. It's inappropriate and frankly disgusting. Sarah, go inside immediately and clean yourself up. You smell like the streets." I stood up slowly, rain dripping from my hair. Thomas looked up at me with apologetic eyes. "I'm sorry, miss. I didn't mean to cause you trouble." "You didn't cause any trouble, Thomas. Don't apologize for anything." Victoria grabbed my arm. "That's enough. Come inside now." "Let go of me," I said firmly, pulling my arm away. "I'm not a child, and I won't be treated like one." The whole group was staring at us now. Margaret was shaking her head in disgust, and Charles was making comments under his breath. But Robert Fletcher was standing quietly in the doorway, watching everything with an expression I couldn't read. Victoria's face was red with anger. "How dare you speak to me like that? After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us, by making a spectacle of yourself with street people. What exactly have you done for me, Mrs. Fletcher? Because all I remember is 2 years of insults and criticism. We welcomed you into our family despite your background. We've been patient with your lack of social grace, and this is how you show your gratitude?" I felt something snap inside me. 2 years of holding my tongue. 2 years of pretending her words didn't hurt. 2 years of trying to be good enough for a woman who would never accept me. "You know what, Mrs. Fletcher? You're right. I don't have social graces. I wasn't taught to look down on people who are less fortunate. I wasn't raised to think that having money makes me better than everyone else. My mother taught me to help people when they're in trouble, not to look the other way." "Your mother," Victoria said with venom in her voice. is a cleaning lady who raised a daughter with no sense of propriety or class. That was the last straw. My mother worked 3 jobs to put me through college. She sacrificed everything so I could have a better life. She taught me that a person's worth isn't measured by their bank account, but by how they treat others. And based on that standard, Mrs. Fletcher, my mother is worth 100 of you. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the rain seemed to quiet down. Victoria's mouth was hanging open, and Margaret was fanning herself like she might faint. Michael stepped toward me. Sarah, maybe we should. No, Michael, I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of being someone I'm not just to please your mother. This is who I am. If that's not good enough for your family, then maybe I shouldn't be here. I turned to walk away, but Robert Fletcher's voice stopped me. Sarah, wait. He walked down from the porch, completely ignoring the rain that was soaking his expensive suit. He approached Thomas, who was still sitting on the bench, clutching his food. Thomas, Robert said softly, it's time to come home. Thomas looked up, and for the first time since I'd known him, he smiled. But it was a sad smile, full of pain and regret. Hello, Bobby, I wondered when you'd find me. The entire group gasped. Bobby? No one called Robert Fletcher by a nickname. I've been looking for you for 3 years, Tommy, ever since you disappeared. Victoria stepped forward, confusion clear on her face. Robert, what's going on? How do you know this person? Robert Fletcher turned to face his wife and family, still standing in the rain. His voice was steady but filled with emotion. Everyone, I'd like you to meet my brother, Thomas Fletcher. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of rain hitting the pavement. Margaret actually did faint and had to be caught by Charles. Victoria looked like she'd seen a ghost. Your brother, Michael said, staring back and forth between his father and the homeless man. But Dad, you said Uncle Thomas died in a car accident. I said he was gone. I never said he was dead. Robert knelt down next to his brother. Tommy, why? Why did you leave? Why did you put us through this? Thomas looked down at his hands. You know why, Bobby. After Susan died, after I lost the company, after everything fell apart, I just couldn't handle it anymore. The money, the pressure, the expectations. I felt like I was suffocating. So you decided to disappear, to live on the streets? Tommy, you're worth $50 million. You have a trust fund, property, investments. And what good did any of it do me? Thomas stood up slowly, his voice getting stronger. Money didn't save Susan from cancer. Money didn't stop me from making the business decisions that nearly destroyed everything we built together. Money didn't fill the emptiness I felt every single day. Victoria finally found her voice. This is impossible. You're telling me that this homeless man is your brother, the Thomas Fletcher who used to be vice president of Fletcher Industries. The same one, Robert confirmed. Tommy, you were the best businessman I ever knew. You had vision, creativity, compassion. When you left, the company lost its heart. Thomas laughed bitterly. Compassion? Is that what you call it? I made decisions that cost hundreds of people their jobs. Bobby, I expanded too fast, took too many risks. When the market crashed, good people lost their livelihoods because of my mistakes. And then you punished yourself by throwing away everything, including your family. I watched this incredible scene unfold, still standing in the rain, still processing what I was hearing. The homeless man I had been helping for months was Michael's uncle, a millionaire who had given up everything to live on the streets. Thomas looked at me with those intelligent eyes. I had noticed from the beginning. Sarah, you've been bringing me food for 4 months, coffee, sandwiches, kind words. You never asked me for anything, never judged me, never made me feel less than human. Do you know how rare that is? I was crying now, tears mixing with the rain on my face. I just wanted to help. You looked so alone. I was alone. I chose to be alone. But you reminded me that there are still good people in the world. People who help others not because they want something in return, but because it's the right thing to do. Victoria was shaking her head frantically. This is insane. Thomas, if you're really Robert's brother, then you need to clean yourself up and act like a Fletcher. This homeless act is embarrassing to the entire family. Thomas looked at his sister-in-law with the same sad smile. Victoria, you haven't changed at all. Still worried about appearances. Still thinking that clothes and status are what make a person valuable. They do make a person valuable. Look at you. You're filthy. You smell. You're living like an animal. How is that better than being wealthy? Because when I was wealthy, I forgot who I was. I forgot what mattered. I became someone I didn't recognize. Someone who cared more about profit margins than people's lives. Robert put his hand on his brother's shoulder. Tommy, you made mistakes. We all have. But running away didn't fix anything. The company has struggled without you. I've struggled without you. And what about her? Thomas pointed at Victoria. Your wife, who just spent the evening humiliating a young woman for the crime of being kind to a stranger. What does that say about the family I'd be coming back to? Victoria's face went white. How dare you judge me? I've built this family's reputation in this community. I've made us respected, admired, feared. Maybe. Respected? Respect comes from how you treat people. Especially people who can't do anything for you. Thomas, look at me again. Sarah showed me more respect in 5 minutes than I've received from society people in years. Michael finally spoke up. Uncle Thomas, I had no idea. I mean, I was just a kid. When you left, I barely remember you. You were 15, bright, curious, kind-hearted, a lot like your father was at that age. Thomas smiled at his nephew. And you chose well with Sarah. She has something that money can't buy. Which is what, exactly? Victoria snapped. Character, Robert said firmly. Something that's been in short supply in this family lately. The rain was still falling, but none of us seemed to care anymore. We were all soaked, standing on a street corner having the most important conversation of our lives. Thomas, Robert continued, the board has been pressuring me to retire. I'm 67 years old, and honestly, I'm tired. But I won't leave the company to people who don't understand what we built it for. What are you saying, Bobby? I'm saying I want you to come back. Not as my employee, but as my partner, co-CEO. We can rebuild Fletcher Industries the right way. The way we always dreamed of. When we were kids. Thomas was quiet for a long time. Finally, he looked at me. Sarah, what do you think? Should an old fool like me get a second chance? I wiped the rain from my eyes. I think everyone deserves a second chance, Thomas, but only if they're ready to take it. And what about you? Are you ready for what comes next? I looked around at the group. Victoria was still glaring at me with hatred. Margaret and Charles looked like they wanted to disappear. Michael was watching me with love and concern, and Robert Fletcher was looking at me with something that might have been respect. I don't understand what you mean. Thomas smiled, and for the first time, it wasn't sad. Bobby, if I come back to Fletcher Industries, I want to make some changes. What kind of changes? I want to create a new division, focused on community outreach and social responsibility. Someone needs to run it. Someone who understands what it means to help people who need it most. Robert caught on immediately. Sarah, how would you feel about becoming a director at Fletcher Industries? Director of Community Relations. My mouth fell open. What? I don't have any business experience. I work at a small nonprofit. You have something more important, Thomas said. You have heart. You understand what our company should stand for. Victoria exploded. Absolutely not. Robert, you cannot be serious. She's nobody. She has no education, no background, no qualifications. I have a bachelor's degree in social work and 2 years of experience managing community programs, I said quietly. From where? Some community college? From Northwestern University. I graduated summa cum laude. Victoria's mouth snapped shut. Even she couldn't argue with Northwestern. Robert smiled. Thomas, I like your first executive decision. Sarah, what do you say? I looked at Michael, who was grinning like he just won the lottery. Dad, are you serious about this? Dead serious. Sarah, you'd be reporting directly to Thomas and me. Your starting salary would be $300,000 a year, plus benefits and stock options. I nearly fell over. $300,000 was more money than I'd ever imagined having. I need to think about it. Of course you do. But Sarah, Think about this too. You'd have the resources to help thousands of people instead of dozens. You could create programs that actually make a difference in this city. Thomas nodded. And Michael, if you're interested, there's a position opening up in our development division, Director of Urban Planning. We need someone young and creative to help us design communities that work for everyone, not just the wealthy. Michael's eyes lit up. Are you offering me a job, Uncle Thomas? I'm offering you a chance to build something meaningful, something that would make both our families proud. Victoria was turning red again. And what about me? I've been a director at Fletcher Industries for 10 years. I've given my life to that company. Robert and Thomas exchanged a look. Robert sighed. Victoria, we need to talk about your role going forward. What do you mean? I mean that some of the decisions you've made as Director of Public Relations have not reflected well on the company. The charity gala incident last month, for example. Victoria had organized a charity gala where she spent more money on decorations and catering than actually went to charity. It was a scandal in the social pages for weeks. That was a successful event. We raised money. You raised $50,000 for charity and spent $200,000 on the party, Thomas said. That's not charity, Victoria. That's a tax write-off with good publicity. And then there's tonight, Robert added quietly. The way you treated Sarah shows exactly the kind of attitude we're trying to change at Fletcher Industries. Victoria looked around desperately. You're all ganging up on me because of her. She's poisoned you against your own family. No, Victoria, you did that yourself. Robert's voice was sad but firm. We're restructuring the company. Your position as director is being eliminated. We're offering you a management position in the marketing department. The look on Victoria's face was pure rage. You're demoting me? For her? For some cleaning lady's daughter? I'm promoting people based on character and ability, Robert said. Something I should have done years ago. Victoria turned to Michael. Michael, you can't be okay with this. She's turning your family against each other. Michael looked at his mother with disappointment. Mom, she didn't turn anyone against anyone. You did that by being cruel to the woman I love. The woman you love? Michael, you can't be serious about marrying her. She's completely wrong for you. She's perfect for me. She's kind, intelligent, hardworking, and she makes me want to be a better person. What more could I ask for? I was crying again. But this time they were happy tears. After 2 years of feeling like I wasn't good enough, I finally understood that I had been good enough all along. I just hadn't been around the right people to see it. Thomas clapped his hands together. Well, this has been the most interesting family dinner I've attended in years. Bobby, I think it's time I came home. Are you sure, Tommy? It won't be easy. There will be reporters. Questions. People who want to know where you've been. Let them ask. I'm not ashamed of what I've learned living on the streets. I've seen how the other half lives. And it's changed me. I think it will make me a better businessman. Robert smiled. Then welcome back, brother. The two men hugged in the rain, and I saw Robert Fletcher cry for the first time since I'd known him. Sarah, Thomas said, I have one condition for taking the job. What's that? I want you to keep bringing me coffee sometime. Not because I need it, but because those moments reminded me that kindness still exists in the world. I laughed through my tears. I think I can manage that. Victoria was still standing there, looking like her world had collapsed around her. This is not over, she said finally. I will not be humiliated like this. Victoria, Robert said wearily, you're my wife and I love you, but if you can't learn to treat people with respect, especially people our son cares about, then you're going to find yourself very lonely. She stormed back into the house, slamming the door behind her. Margaret and Charles followed, whispering frantically to each other. Well, Thomas said, that went better than I expected. Michael laughed. Uncle Thomas, you've been gone for 3 years. How could you have expected anything? I expected your mother to throw something at me. The fact that she only yelled means I'm making progress. We all laughed, standing in the rain, like a group of crazy people. But for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere. So, I said, when do I start? Robert and Thomas grinned at each other. How about Monday? Robert said. Monday it is. As we walked back toward the house, Thomas put his hand on my shoulder. Sarah, thank you. For what? for seeing me as a human being when I had forgotten how to see myself that way, for reminding me that wealth means nothing if you don't use it to help others, for being exactly who you are, even when people tried to make you into someone else. Michael took my hand. So, future Director Martinez, are you ready to change the world? I squeezed his hand and smiled. With you and your family? I think we just might. 6 months later, Fletcher Industries had launched 5 new community programs, built 2 homeless shelters, and created a fund that provided job training for people transitioning off the street. Thomas Fletcher was featured on the cover of Fortune magazine as the CEO who came back from nothing. Michael and I were married in a small ceremony in my mother's church in Pilsen, with Thomas walking me down the aisle, since my father wasn't there to do it. And Victoria Fletcher, she eventually came around, especially after she realized that her daughter-in-law was now making more money than she was. But more importantly, she learned that respect isn't something you demand, it's something you earn. As for the homeless man I used to bring coffee to, he never disappeared. He just became the man he was always meant to be, surrounded by people who loved him for who he was, not what he owned. And sometimes, late at night when we were working on a particularly difficult project at Fletcher Industries, he would look at me and smile. Still want to bring me coffee, Sarah? Always, Thomas. Always.